So imagine being 16 years old and finding your way to America. And through that, finding a way to find your voice, becoming one of the most prolific content producers, podcasters, and mortgage lenders. Today, we have Ella Gerunkle. You get to hear a story from somebody who has made a phenomenal career in mortgage lending and has an amazing story. So let's jump into it. You know, one of the things I noticed about you that really always attracted me to what you do is that we all kind of approach doing content from a very like, okay, my business needs it. It's important to do. I'll go ahead and do it. And then through that, what I'll notice is specifically with people in the mastermind like you, then there's just these people who go hard on something, and you did that with your YouTube. And watching how you've come out of your shell from the perspective of, you know, you're building a business because you're an extremely successful loan officer to begin with, but then to start sharing that message on your YouTube has been really fun to watch and to see who you evolved to, because just from an outsider looking in, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but you look younger and you look more vibrant as you started doing it. It's almost as if you tapping into that creative side of your brain created something in you. Do you feel like that happened to you? Do you feel like you got more excited about it or more excited about the business once you started creating content?
That's an interesting observation. I mean, I've always loved the business I'm in. Mm-hmm. Coming up on 30 years, I've oftentimes referred to it as, since I started in it on literally Valentine's Day in 1996.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's been literally a love-hate relationship. You know, It's love at most days, hate at some, but just like any relationship, right? And it has been my Hotel California, where I've tried to check out a few times and could never leave. And I think, content creation and videos have really put me in a different headspace almost.
Yeah.
Because you have to pull yourself back from the daily grind and from the daily conversations with clients and being their therapist a lot of times into this whole other universe, pretty much.
That never existed.
In
1996. Exactly. You were not doing this in 1996,
no,
right? Like,
hell no.
So now you're having to tap into this. Like, I feel like our brains, like the creative side of our brains, just hadn't been used for 20 years.
Exactly.
And then you go to an event. The most creative
we could get back in the day was with long form sales letters. And I was and still am a huge follower of Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer and the magnetic marketing, and that long form sales letter, the sales stories sell, facts tell, stories sell.
Facts tell, stories sell. Well, that's like now today is Sharon saying, you know, proof over promise.
Exactly.
Right? So that's almost the same thing.
Exactly.
And then you
got Mosey.
Yeah.
It's basically the old concept of storytelling, but now more taking it off of paper.
Yeah.
And putting it in live content.
Yes.
And I love that. It's like kind of bearing our souls in front of sometimes thousands of people.
It's bearing your soul in front of thousands of people, right? So like one of the things that you did, you have this podcast, and let's talk about the podcast, right? Ask Ella, right?
Yep.
And if you're not following it, if you haven't YouTubed it, go do that now, because I think it's one of the really good podcasts for any loan officer that's out there. And one of the things that I like that you do is you really lean into, you know, actually giving people a concept and understanding of what happens behind the scenes. And some of the frustrating things, but you know, one of the things that I noticed with you is, and this is the moment. There's moments in creators, in their careers, and I would say you now have a career as a creator that are defining moments. And for you was this one podcast where you got pissed off, and somebody made a comment, and then you got on the microphone and you used the power of the microphone to really share your story. Talk about that a little bit.
So some people think that we shouldn't speak our mind, right? We should create this persona on video and on social media. And I don't subscribe to that mentality. I've always spoken my mind. I've always really put my heart and soul into the videos from day one when I started doing them a couple of years ago. Well, this is actually my second venture into the video realm, but this has been a whole other evolution, basically. So for all intents and purposes, for the last couple of years, it's been more me. And this jackass literally commented, I can't even remember what the video was, but the comment was so asininely nasty about home buying that it just rubbed me the wrong way in every possible way. It like in every possible way, seriously.
Yeah.
I could not get out of my mind. I was still seething about it for like days. So when I went in to do another recording at the video studio where I do mine, I kind of said, I have to do this. I'm sorry. I freaking have to do this. I have to talk back because there is nothing that grinds my chops like the negativity about home buying. And
well, what was the context? Like, what was the context what was his messaging? Like
something either about, I can't honestly, like off the top of my head, can't remember.
It was more about fear. It was basically, it was
like, the poverty mentality all throughout.
Yeah.
It was, you shouldn't buy a home because it's a ripoff because, only the banks get richer. And that whole fear porn bullshit. Yeah. That's what always gets me going about home buying. It's like, if you don't want to buy, keep on going. Move on. You know, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
But don't tell everybody else that your unfounded fears, that your completely personally biased and unsubstantiated perception of home buying applies to everybody. So, it's like it's better to keep quiet and stay a fool than open your mouth and show to the world how much of a fool.
Yeah.
That's what that was for me.
Well, but why does it piss you off so much? I'm so curious about this because, like, I think that you doing what you do for as long as you've done it has earned you the ability to understand the market in a way that most people don't understand it. So the rest of the world, right? Like the media, and politics, everything will have a certain messaging. But then there's a reality that you and I live that most people don't get to see, that we're right now we're in May. April probably for you was one of your biggest months in so long, right?
Yep.
It was for many of us because the market is now starting to move again and we're starting to see people like get into homes again. But I also had a
good winter too. So
you had a good winter. You're just successful altogether, but you get to see it from...
I bow down, but...
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second because every time I talk to you, you don't give yourself enough credit on this, but because you're one of the tops. You're in the like top in the city, people who are doing well. And so when I look at it and I think about what's pissing you off about this, I'm curious, like, is it because you don't want to take you don't want somebody's fear in the messaging taking away an opportunity for somebody to get a home? Where does that anger come from?
The anger comes from that's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to negativity.
Yeah, you have the best sayings. Like we could just clip all of these. They're so good. Yeah, you're allergic to negativity.
Because again, if you think about it, negativity is contagious.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's easy.
It's easy.
It's easy to latch onto.
It's easy to latch onto, but it's just like any contagion, it spreads.
Yeah.
And it's enough for one person to plant a seed of negativity, whether it's home buying, whether it's a relationship, anything. It's those seeds of negativity and doubt, they sprout and they grow. And the more they grow, the more misconceptions and the more untruth they spread. And besides being allergic to negativity for that reason alone, I'm also extremely cognizant of the poverty mentality.
Okay.
And negativity feeds into the poverty mentality or creates poverty mentality. And so many people limit themselves from success by having the poverty mentality, by buying into it. And the more negative you are, the more it feeds into the poverty mentality. So the more you push yourself down instead of actually pulling yourself up.
I love this.
I mean, I'm a zero-gen immigrant.
Legal
immigrant.
Yes.
We came here with freaking nothing.
Yeah. Tell me that story. Like, I'm gonna frame this, okay? Because this might even be your breakthrough story. But tell me, how old were you when you got here?
I was 16 when my family moved to the States.
You were 16. Okay. So right before you guys moved here, where were you? What was that life like?
Normal teenager. I mean, if there is normal teenager life in the former Soviet Union, and back then it was one country. It was still the giant that is no more. Born in Ukraine, raised in Russia. Again, keep in mind, it was all one country, so there was really no difference, really.
Okay.
And getting uprooted at 16, now, I mean, back then nobody talked about the psychology behind it, and
no, but that has long lasting impression, right? So you're going about your day as what you know normal life to be, right? In
to
there,
the most,
right?
I mean, we didn't uproot overnight. I mean, that didn't happen overnight.
Okay, how did you figure out, like, when did you get the idea, like, okay,
I wasn't the driving power. I mean, I was 16.
You were 16, but when did you realize, like, okay, this is really happening, I'm moving?
So my parents tried to leave the old country back in the early 80s, were not granted exit visas, became part of the refuseniks back in the day, so we couldn't leave from 81 till 89 when the permissions were granted. And to be honest, I did not know what to expect.
You just kept hearing conversations about this.
Well, I knew it. I was old enough, and by then standards and that, my country of origin standards, at 16 you're treated like an adult. It's like here we coddle our kids till they're freaking 30.
Well, let me ask about that, because you have daughters.
Yes.
Right? Can you imagine what you went through? Do you think your daughters could have handled it the same way you would have? Okay, why is that?
No. They will hate me for saying this, but they are, although they're not as coddled as the majority of the American kids, they're still cuddled more than
way it was when you were growing up, where you were growing up from, right?
So yes, they're street smart. Yes, they're, like I said, above most American kids I know in terms of figuring their way around stuff in life. Yep. Still.
It's good, yeah.
But necessity is also mother of all talent.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's another one. Yeah, I want to write a book on just Ella-isms.
Oh my God, it's too funny. So you adapt, you roll with the punches. I mean, you get it's not, again, when you don't have a choice, that's what you deal with.
Well, yeah, you're right. I think that's true. But and honestly, I think our kids, mine included, who are coddled probably more than yours.
I don't
know. But I'm saying, like, I think that they're resilient. I think children are resilient no matter what, and we can take a lot more than people realize we can throw at us. But to be uprooted at that age is a lot. It's a very traumatic situation to happen to you.
I wasn't looking at it as traumatic. All I know is that I basically had to, childhood ended. And I mean, that was basically,
really
pretty abrupt. Because,
that's how you live.
Well, again, at 16, you're not treated as a child over there. You weren't.
Yeah.
Let me correct that. I don't know how things are now.
Yeah.
But basically, 36 years ago, I wasn't already treated as a child at 16. But it's, when you move here with your family.
Where did you land?
We landed in Portland.
You moved to Portland. Did you have family, friends there? What got you to Portland? So odd.
That's like a whole other convo, not for a podcast. But, I mean, we had the immigration processing done first for a couple of weeks in Vienna, then another almost 3 months in Rome.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
So, I mean, you don't get to come here legally straight, or you didn't back in the day.
Okay.
And we landed in Portland. Like I said, that's a whole other conversation.
Did your family have basically clothes on their back and a pocket full of money? Cash?
You can't have pocket full of money because the government at the time when we left, they only allowed you to take so much.
Oh, got it.
Which equated to like $140 per person.
Really?
So there was 4 of us, my parents, myself, my younger brother, and
I never heard
then
this.
my mom's parents, my grandparents. And you could take like 2 suitcases per person, and the number of precious items that you could take out of the country was limited.
Do you remember what you brought? Do you remember the things what was the most precious item you put in your, do you remember what that was?
A couple of things. I brought my I guess for lack of a better description, it was like a teddy bear pillow.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember carrying it under my arm because it was a teddy bear shaped pillow. So kind of.
And that was home for you. That was like, it was like a reminiscent of.
Carried it under my arm on the flight to Vienna, and then I carried it on our flight to Rome, and then on the flight to the States. There was so many limitations of what we could and couldn't take with us.
Yeah.
Telling people nowadays about that is insane. But like, you couldn't take your photo albums. You had to empty out the photo album.
Oh, really?
Of all the pictures. And
you
just
have
take
pictures from back then? Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good,
we brought
good.
some, not all.
Not
of them,
everything.
but
Yeah.
we brought some. The books you took, they couldn't be more than so many volumes. So I think one of the things we're carrying with us was like a 2-tome encyclopedia. We could only take one, or dictionary. Couldn't tell you right now what it was so many years later. So it was just crazy, crazy stuff. Like 5 gold items per person.
Yeah.
Kids not included. I mean,
wow. Yeah. So this is you're saying you didn't look at it as a traumatic thing, but this is a whole new. So you get to Portland. We get to Portland,
and unfortunately, the family that was, quote unquote, sponsoring us didn't secure an apartment for us. So the first few weeks we stayed with them, and having to find an apartment for basically 2 families, grandparents and us. And I was taught English in the old country.
Okay, good. So you kind of knew.
But I was taught the proper upper class society British English. So when I first came here, that's how I spoke.
Yeah.
Which I can't really even do anymore well. But the British covered up the Russian accent, so nobody could really tell where the hell I'm from.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. High school was tough. But
why was it tough?
Let me back into that in a sec.
Yeah.
But I basically had to be there for the family, like so many immigrant kids. Or kids in the immigrant families.
Because you knew English. You were the
translator.
translator.
Because I knew English, I basically
there.
was the translator.
Yeah.
But as you're translating, you're also learning the ropes.
You're learning the ropes. You're learning
You're
financial,
learning
leases. You're learning everything.
Apartment leases, setting up bank accounts, shopping for a car, shopping for car insurance.
But you don't realize that at the time that you're learning all these things.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
So crazy. Okay.
But I think that's the foundation of why I am who I am today.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
This is going to throw you off track. But I need you to answer this. What would you say to 16-year-old Ella and all of her, the way she looked at life, the way she looked at this move, the way she looked at life at that moment? What would you say to her about where life was going and today, if you could talk to her?
I would say we plan and God laughs.
Say that again?
We plan and God laughs.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever plans I had for myself, I ended up in a totally different.
What was the plans back then for her?
Well, you have to understand, when you are a former Soviet Jewish kid from a Jewish family, you have to get a higher education. You have to,
Is that because you think it's going to be harder otherwise?
That's how it was in the old country. Because you couldn't really, you had to basically.
Yeah.
So higher education, I was planning on grad school. There's an old, again, Russian joke that, you are a disgrace to your Jewish family if you're not a doctor or a lawyer.
Okay. So
medicine was not in my blood at all. Both of my parents were engineers in the old country. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually as non-STEM as they freaking get. Mm-hmm. I'm good at math. Do I like it? No. But I'm good at math because I was taught a certain way in the old country.
Yes.
Like the classical way.
Okay.
I hate it with a passion, but I know it decently well.
Yeah, you can't do what you do without having a trick in numbers of understanding. Like
I guess
you
I
can
don't
look
look at it that way.
Over and over and over. You look at a client.
I can spitball the numbers on the screen or on paper all day long.
You can get. Without a calculator, you can guess to know what is happening, and you'll be close.
Yeah, ask my husband to tabulate, what we're buying at a store, and then throw the number at the cashier, how much change is owed to us, and put the cashier in a trance.
Yes.
because they can't do it without punching the buttons.
Yes.
He's even better at that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But it's the plan was grad school, whether it was business school or law school. I actually was preparing for my GREs. I mean, we're skipping ahead of the 60.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't. And I ended up in the mortgage biz, and I stuck for life.
How did it impact your parents when you decided you weren't going to go that route?
Disappointment.
Disappointment? And,
I mean, overachiever, here I come, you know.
Yeah. And so, but for you, you're also, I do sense this about you, is that you're not going to follow every rule that's put in front of you.
No.
Right? And so, has that served you well?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so. I mean,
Does it make you proud when your kids do it? When they don't follow the rule as to the letter of the law?
I am letting my children pick their destiny.
Good. I can see that in you.
Unlike my parents, and those who know my family will probably not appreciate me saying this, but I didn't want my kids to be like me, to be an overachiever. I don't think it's healthy. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's okay to put that much pressure on the kids.
Did you put a lot of pressure on yourself?
Yes, always.
So you felt like you wanted to alleviate that anxiety from your children.
Yep.
Because you kind of walked around with it.
Good
coming
enough
from the
is
old
good
country.
enough when it came to my kids.
You were cool with that.
I was cool with that.
You didn't want that angst
Nope.
crawling. Okay.
Nope.
And so,
And yet somehow my younger child ended up with that angst even without me putting it in
it's biological. It's,
Yeah, what the hell?
you have it in your genes, right? I mean, if you go back and look at it, I bet you there's so many similarities with your parents' personality and yours. You know, it's just embedded in who you are as an individual. So the question that I'm curious about is, so you get here and you're acclimating. You're now like your parents' translator. You're involved in so much.
You're adult in the family.
And then you're also like get to this new way of life in America.
Yep.
Which is very different. Can you just give me, like, from a 16-year-old's perspective, what were some of the really crazy things that you noticed about American kids versus kids where you came from at that age for you?
Freedom.
Freedom. Like you like when you walk in school, you're seeing these American kids like without a care in the world about freedom. And you're just walking around like, what were you thinking?
Freedom and choice, because back then, again, the education, K through 12, K through 10 for us, or actually 1 through 10 for us, was very structured. You basically grew up with the same, so your class was your class. It wasn't a class of like 1,500 in school.
Yeah.
So high school was big shock, because it was like, holy
Was
crap,
it over
it's
a
huge.
stimulation? Just
Very.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, you basically, your whole day is spent, again, growing up with the same 30 to 45, 6, whatever, however many kids in the class. I grew up in what used to be Leningrad, became St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
So second major city in the old country. Our schools were bigger than, schools obviously in the small towns, but even going through like my 36 people in a class to 1,500 in my graduating class here in the States, that was a shock. But you basically, the whole 30-some kids, from like this to this, you have the same schedule, the same curriculum, and everybody just goes from classroom to classroom together as a group. Mm-hmm. So you grow friends, you grow attachments, you sit with the same people at the desk. I mean, it's, little cliques.
It's crazy.
It's all the same. And here you come to high school and it's like every day is different.
But you also are like kind of alone. You're kind of alone, right?
You're kind of alone, but you also have choice of classes. So it's like, I didn't even realize I had choices of classes.
Yeah.
Like I got stuck in Algebra 1 in the junior year, and I actually corrected the teacher a couple of times because he made mistakes.
Yeah.
And I ended up being pulled aside after the class by the teacher, who told me, like, you probably need a couple of levels of math up. So I think my class is not the right fit for you. I'm like, I can do that?
Yeah.
So
weird, right? Isn't that a weird concept when you think about it?
Like, there, it's like everybody's in the
yeah.
same. Yeah, everybody's in the same group, boat. You name it.
Yeah.
Here it's like, you should be like up there.
Did you feel completely alone, or did you find you find your people kind of early on?
I made friends
pretty quick.
But like I said, the biggest problem was, so I mentioned that I spoke proper British.
Yeah.
Not a lick of conversational English, American conversational English.
Yeah.
Like none.
Okay.
So I could speak.
Yeah.
Very proper, grammatically correct sentences, and lots of vocabulary drilled into me, and I know grammar better than most Americans. Kind of sad, but that's what we learned was grammar, vocabulary, reading, writing, speaking, not so much.
Yeah.
Communicating with my age cohort was a pain in the ass. Because they understood what I said most of the time. But I did not understand what the hell.
And they're talking so fast. They're using slang. They're using like
not slower. Could you please repeat that, but in a different,
in a proper way?
No, like different words. Or could you slow this down? Slower yet, please. Pretty please.
Yeah, and you're such a conversationalist in general in life.
I can be.
No, but I mean, like, this is like, it's weird that your gift is like one of the things when you were growing up was around language, but this is almost like in a weird way your gift. You're doing a podcast for Christ's sake. Like you've taken this one thing at one point in your life that was such a difficulty and made it like something you own. It's a really interesting thing. So, question for you on what was what you were speaking Russian before? Mm-hmm. Okay. And is there a big Russian community in Portland?
When we came, there was barely anybody. I mean, we were like seventh family of the new Russian Jewish immigration or Soviet Jewish immigration.
Yeah.
There is to Americans, since we were, back then and even now, since we all came out of the old country, we're all Russian. Mm-hmm. Well, there was 15 republics, kind of like 15 states, and 150 nationalities.
Oh, wow.
So just because you speak Russian doesn't make you a Russian per se.
Yeah.
But to Americans, we're all Russian. So there was a different group of Russians on the other side of town, also growing at the time. In '89, there was not that many of us, period. In my high school, there was myself and I want to say 4 other Russian speakers, 2 from the prior immigration wave, late 70s, early 80s. So they basically grew up in the States. Both girls essentially grew up in the States. Either, I don't think they were born here, but I think they were, they were brought here as very young children.
Was there camaraderie with that? Like when you would meet those, like because you understood
Yeah, well,
the
again, it's a different a lot different understanding. Okay, actually, no, there was 3. So, and then 2 that came after me. Mm-hmm. And one of them was actually from the Baltics. So whenever somebody called him a Russian, he would like literally turn around to punch somebody.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
It's kind of like you tell an Ukrainian, or you call a Ukrainian a Russian today, they will.
Today, right?
Yeah. They will freaking hate you for life.
What do you, I mean, like, this is just such I'm so fascinated by your life. I mean, it's such a,
just life.
It is, but you lived in it. I mean, of the thousands of people that when you got here and at 16 that had never gone through what you went through, I was one of them. You know what I mean? Like I didn't go through what you went through. And I think that builds an entirely different character, So like what I think in life might be hard, you're like, that's just life, man.
That's just
life.
life.
That's just life. Right. So I want to skip to, first off, aside from podcast, right? Like forget about the mics for a second. How are you doing? Do you feel better?
Yeah.
Do you know, forget, we can edit this piece out, but I'm just curious, like, how do you feel?
I'm fine.
Okay. You feel better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Do you need a break or anything?
No.
Okay. So I want to jump into, one of the things that I'll tell people is like, don't come on this unless you're willing to be vulnerable. And, you are a tough nut to crack.
Uh-oh.
Because I do feel like you're conditioned in a different way. emotion and how that displays. I'm a very like, I'll cry on the drop of a hat if you said
I
something
can
emotional.
too.
Okay. And but I am curious, like when you think back into, your life and we're also in like one of the hardest, most challenging time in our career, and you still seem to find a lot of success with it. And there's very few people.
But I survived 07, 08. I mean, come on.
Well, we all did. Well, I won't say we all did. I survived it.
So many people didn't.
And the question for you on that, let's talk about that for a second. Comparing the two, which one was harder?
Back then.
Back then? I find this one harder.
Why?
Because I feel like that at that time was like this. And then before you knew it, we were like, I remember like in a drop of a hat, before I knew it, we were busy again, really. And it was like an onslaught of busyness really fast. And
I don't know. I thought it was, I'd say between 07 and 10 was absolute hell.
Okay.
And then in 10, it started turning around.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like I got through
So
08. I got through 08. 08 and 09 were terrible. Mm-hmm. And then 10, it took off. And I don't know, I just feel like this one, maybe because I'm living it now, like you were kind of, I feel we're coming out. I feel like, we found the floor months ago, and now we're kind of bouncing back up. But interesting.
I mean, the business is tough right now.
I will say financially,
no joke.
that one was devastating for me.
That was like, if we survive that one, we can survive freaking anything.
Yeah. So you're coming through all that. In life, there are these breakthrough moments, and the way that I usually describe it is water boils at 212 degrees. Mm-hmm. That's like the boiling point. And so that's to me the breakthrough moment. But leading up to that, there's this like pressure that's starting to build and within ourselves. And so thinking about that analogy in terms of like, what's a 211 moment? Where were you right before you broke through to the next level of whatever it was in your life? I want to hear that story. Like, tell me a little bit about your breakthrough moment that you can go back to.
So, actually, it's funny you brought up the 07, 08, because that was tough. Mm-hmm. That really was tough. Financially, mentally, emotionally, every which way possible. Mm-hmm.
Did it feel like the
walls were closing in?
Yeah, that's the worst feeling in the world, because I've literally felt that, and I know it.
You can't outrun it.
You can't outrun it.
No matter what you do, the rug is being pulled under you every freaking day.
Yeah.
Like there was no lack of, for me, there was no lack of clients or buyers, but you didn't know if you were going to close because you didn't know if the lender was going to be there when the buyer got to the closing table.
Were you a broker at the time?
Yes.
Do you remember like Taylor Bean and Whitaker and
yeah,
those guys shutting down?
I remember all of them.
Just shutting down one after the other?
Yeah, the good
worst.
old implodometer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, like as if it was tomorrow. PTSD, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And funny enough, actually, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the beginning of, was it 21 when COVID hit? It was the same PTSD feeling. It was the same sense. Because the industry, actually, the whole financial industry was teetering on the brink. And not very many people know about it, how close we came to.
It was like there was these margin calls that are happening.
It was the margin calls that were just killing the
I know your company, my company, like it was like $3 million a day.
Yep.
Like because the rates were dropping.
Yep.
And which is a really weird thing, and somebody can explain this better than maybe Barry Habib or somebody, but the rates are dropping, so where you're locked, you would think would be a better position, but it wasn't. You're doing the opposite.
Yep, exactly.
And so there were all these margin calls that were happening that were literally putting mortgage companies I know our company bailed out other companies as a friendship deal, because the way that our CEO saw it was, we don't need another black eye to our industry during COVID, like especially right now.
Yeah, but the guidelines tightened. Everything else.
Every day it was something like every day
there was either investors dropping out again, or the guides tightening. And it was, like I said, it was between March and June. Mm-hmm. It was essentially every day was that sense of PTSD.
Yeah, I get uncomfortable hearing about it because I forgot about it because then it got really good really quick. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like got real good real quick.
But I also don't want that really good really quick either, because I don't know about you, but 21 and 22, I basically never left the house, and it was 12-hour work days.
Yeah, it was.
It was just pick up the phone and put the deals together.
Yeah.
And it was just go, 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 go. And I don't know if that go, 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 go is such a good thing either. I mean, yeah, it was
It was easier.
It was,
look, if I'm going to go through it, I'd rather get a paycheck. But like, I feel like we've been working really hard the last couple of years without the big paychecks that.
Well, it went from 2 crazy years of working nonstop to what now has become like, quote unquote, the new normal.
Well, so like the rest of the world.
So it kind of went from the crazy to a different type of crazy without any anything in between, so no buffer, and therefore no downtime.
Well, like the rest of the world, right? If you were in hospitality, if you were in any sort of like entertainment or anything like that,
Everything
your world
just
stopped.
Yep.
And we got really busy. I remember one time, one of my neighbors, I saw him at the store, right? And this is like during COVID, so we weren't really supposed to ever so I read at one of my neighbors, and he's like lived 2 houses down, but we're friends, and he was like, "How are you doing?" I was like, I'm just like, I can't even think straight. Like, we're so busy right now. And he kind of stopped me and was like, "Hey," he said something, and it didn't land on me until I got in my car, but it was basically like, the rest of us are really struggling. And so you should be careful how you say that. Like, kind of like, like he took it like I was kind of flexing on how busy I was, but he was like, the rest of us aren't working. Like, the rest of us are really struggling. And I felt so bad about that, but he was right. But then we felt it, right? Like, the wave of nothing happened right after the next couple of years. And that's what we're kind of bouncing out of today. But going back to your 2008, like, was that, what happened there? Like, how did you have to get yourself out of that, being a broker, because you not only had the business falling out and the market falling out, but you had regulatory things that were happening that were keeping us brokers from existing. They didn't want brokers to exist.
Right. In 2008, I became a branch of a national branching company. No names.
Yep.
And that was actually still maintaining the broker model, because back then, well, in 2008, the regs didn't hit yet. The regs hit in 10, and that's where everybody basically turned their broker platforms to retail just to work around the regulations. And I don't know if you want me to like dip into history about what caused the 07, 08, and then you brought up the regulations.
Well, I'm more curious how it impacted you specifically. Like, what was a moment that you had to tell yourself, I can quit, I could jump off a cliff, like whatever, what pulled you into?
I could not quit, and I couldn't jump off of a cliff. Thanks to a dear friend, they helped me get a job at, I believe it was LBPS, then it became Ceteris. So basically a job in servicing. So it was still a related.
So you pivoted to help people.
I actually worked in the transfer department where, thousands of loans bundled.
How hard was that?
Being transferred in.
How hard was that compared to like?
The learning curve was interesting, but it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
Because I already had, unlike a lot of people who worked there who had no mortgage knowledge.
Yeah.
I had the mortgage base, so I knew in those transfer meetings and conversations with the transferring servicers, I knew what they were talking about on the more granular level, whereas other people in the servicing department, in the transfer department, didn't have the mortgage background, so to them it was all just words.
Well, but how did it feel from the perspective of you know that you're going to work a finite amount of time in order to make a finite amount of money? Different from waking up with no pipeline.
The paycheck was good. I still kept the branch open.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Okay, so you're still hustling behind the scenes.
Well, hustling is an overstatement.
Yeah.
A huge overstatement.
Yeah.
But that moment of realization, I don't know if it was maybe like after the couple of months of excitement were off of, this could be a really cool gig, great compensation, great benefits. About 2 months into it, I realized corporate is not my world.
You're too much of an entrepreneur.
I'm literally killing my soul doing the corporate 8 to 5 bullshit.
Yeah.
the whole idea of clocking in and out
Yeah.
was killing me. The idea that the office politics, all of it.
No matter how good you do, you're going to get the same paycheck. No matter how,
Exactly. The cubicle jungle, the prairie dogging. I mean, I don't know. That's when I lasted for 8 months.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
And parted ways with the employer, and at that point I knew there was no turning back. So I had to pedal to the metal back into the business and do whatever it takes, because there's no way in hell that I would ever go back to corporate world, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my light bulb switch, whatever, eureka moment.
Yeah, your breakthrough moment that you were like,
I can't do corporate. I will never again do corporate.
But did that push you back into going back to doing the mortgage thing, helping people with a different lens, meaning it's either this or that?
It was, I can't fail.
That's what I'm saying. Like, failure meant
failure is not an option.
It's not an option. And so at that point, you changed your mindset, and the rest is history in a lot of ways, right? And you've just been evolving as an individual since then. Tell us about like how you came up to what was the inspiration for you doing a podcast?
Oh, wow. I had a radio show on Portland for a couple of years.
Okay.
It's one of those paid.
So you're a conversationalist. For somebody who didn't know English, like you have become this like person with a microphone all of a sudden. This is great.
Wait, actually, was it my first? No, it wasn't my first year in high school. It was in my, so not in the junior, in the senior year. I actually, could have been junior year. I actually ended up, like, no fear, seriously. The fears I have now, I didn't have back then. The insecurities I have now, I didn't have back then.
Yeah.
I freaking joined the speech and debate team.
Look at you.
And I actually took
Is that probably the best thing ever?
Probably.
Yeah.
I actually took third in the city of Portland in impromptu.
Look at you. Yeah.
Went on to state. Made the semis, did not make the quarterfinals.
Wow.
Unfortunately, to go to nationals.
Yeah,
I was one of the alternates.
And you're talking about like, you know.
And that's with the English as a second language, like barely, a year or two off the boat.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
So I can talk off the cuff. I mean, that's not.
I know. Yeah. No. That's one thing I knew about you. You know, you've always been I've always been intrigued in talking to you because you have a really good insight.
Give me a topic I like, and we can talk forever.
Yeah. So Ask Ella, tell us about it. What is it? What was the inspiration on that?
So Ask Ella, it was that the inspiration was, like I said, partially goes back to the radio show that I had, Your Home, Your Money. Picture, ABBA. Money, money, money playing in the background.
That's funny. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Interviewing people not just in the mortgage or real estate realm, but adjacent as well, because there's so much that revolves around the money subject that people don't ever really think about.
But are you a catalyst for people who are, sorry to interrupt you, but like,
no, you're fine.
Are there people who did you build a podcast? The way I think of Ask Ella is you're giving people a way to understand the money piece of buying a home by asking you the question, right? You're answering the question that most people are asking themselves.
Not necessarily. The aspect of it that I like the best is bringing in experts from outside of the mortgage realm.
Okay.
And talking to the insurance people. What drives the crazy increase in the insurance costs? That affects everybody.
Yeah.
Bringing in when the realtor compensation piece changed last year. Bringing in an old friend of mine, an attorney, a real estate attorney, to discuss the changes. Bringing in agents to talk about the markets. Bringing in a mortgage insurance rep, Annabelle, our mutual friend.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
Talking about mortgage insurance, because a lot of people view mortgage insurance as this huge negative. I personally believe that mortgage insurance is your friend.
I love it, yeah.
So it's bringing people, like I said, in the adjacent or surrounding industries to make my clients and general public's understanding of how those pieces are all one big puzzle that fits together.
Yeah.
And you can have understanding of one without understanding the others.
That's good. I think that's a powerful. So who's like your perfect audience for you? Is it the consumer?
The
Is
consumer.
it the
The
consumer?
Ask Ella is definitely the consumer, because
Okay.
I do try to break down the complexities
Yeah.
and intricacies of, again, not just the mortgage realm,
Mm-hmm.
but the adjacent realms too. Like property management is another one. A non-QM loan, what is that? So
What does that even mean? Yeah.
what does that even mean,
Yeah.
or how does it work? Because there is a misconception that, oh yeah, there's now bank statement loans. That's easy. I'll just throw my bank statements at you. Well, no, it's not that easy. It's the whoever is doing the actual loan, whether it's us in house or whether it's brokered. It's literally looking at every freaking line item on the bank
Yeah.
statements.
Yeah. It truly is. So you have the podcast, and for people who are out there that don't know you, where do we find you?
Oh my gosh! If we're talking socials, Facebook, Team Ella, or Ella Mortgage Lender. On Insta, Ella Mortgage Lender.
Okay. Find her on Insta. I mean, you also do amazing content, by the way.
Thank you.
For somebody who's like a loan officer that might be struggling right now, and you actually moved from Portland area into the Arizona area, I would imagine you have a lot of business still.
Most of my business is still the PNW.
Yeah,
Pacific
PNW.
Northwest.
Yeah. So, but you also like you moved here. It's funny because like I'll see you posting stuff, and all of a sudden you're like with all my friends. Like you're now integrating into Arizona. Like everybody that I know, which is just a testament to you're like I've been here so many years, but like it's a testament to your personality. And so for somebody who's starting out in the mortgage industry or that's struggling to do it, what are some things that you would recommend that they should be doing right now that you've done that's helped you continue your business at a high level?
Failure is not an option.
There you go. Yeah, you have to commit.
So balls to the wall.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
LFG.
Yeah.
As Neil would say, LFG.
Yeah.
Because you have to set out to succeed.
Yeah. We just had Arjun yesterday, or 2 days ago? Yeah. And we were LFG. Yeah, we're talking about LFG big time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
it's conversations, it's connections.
Yep.
It's not what do you know or how much do you know, but it's also willingness to learn. Because there's
Yeah.
so many people in our profession and in the adjacent realtor profession who are 20 years times first year,
Yeah.
or who are 5 years but learned every day.
Well, like, okay, so I'm going to be 50 this year. And
You're a babe.
thank you. But like, but there's times I'll tell myself, like, I'm sitting in this mastermind trying to learn new things and I should know it by now. I'm 50, right? But I think being a student of the game is really, really, and you have to continue to evolve no matter how old you are.
The game changes constantly.
It's constantly changing. And I'd rather be in a room with people that are helping me learn more. And like these relationships that like me and you included, like they've really propelled me. I mean,
Yeah, I'd rather learn than teach.
there you go. Yeah. So
Because I teach so much throughout the day, talking to clients, explaining the mortgage game to them,
yep.
that it does, and I love it, don't take me
Yeah.
wrong, but it is very taxing
Oh, without a doubt.
as
Yeah.
well.
But it's good to be fed, right? So,
Yes.
so question for you is,
So it's like feeding your soul.
so do you subscribe to the idea that, I think you and I are in the same mastermind. It's not cheap, but you invest in it. You invest in yourself. Like, what do you have a calculation in your head that you say, okay, of all the things I'm going to do in 2025, I know that I'm allocating this amount of money to my personal development? Or does it just like, you just get talked into writing a check here and there and you just go from there?
Technically, I should know how much to allocate, and that's like the absolute limit.
Yeah.
Do I let myself get talked into more
Yeah.
different subs? Not so much anymore, but I have been in coaching groups actively since early 2000s.
Okay.
And
So you believe in coaching. You
I
believe
do
in
believe in coaching. I'm not one of those people who, paraphrasing Dan Kennedy, is walking around like his phrase, most people walk around looking for a place to plug in their umbilical cord. I'm not necessarily one of those.
Yeah.
it's more learning new ideas. It's more, like you said, I'm in my 50s too, so I'm not one of those can't teach old dog new tricks.
Okay. Well, I mean, look at how much content you're producing. I mean, just from when you and I started talking, the evolution of your content has grown so much. And you would probably say, "Oh, Chris, it's not that much." Like, or it's not. You always like, if I give you a compliment,
I have an amazing team to give a lot of credit to.
But you were smart enough to get a team to begin with, right? Like, yes. So okay. So I'm gonna just kind of paraphrase some of this. Like, so number one, failure's not an option. You have to commit to this game. Number two is you get coached. You believe in masterminds and that sort of thing. Would you say the third piece is making sure that you're getting your message out through content?
Definitely getting the message out there through content.
Yeah.
But human contact.
Yes.
And human connection.
Yeah.
Cannot be replaced.
There you go.
By the socials.
I will tell people every day, no matter how much content I do, no one's in my inbox giving me free business because of it. It's because I pick up the phone and I make a human connection on top of that. That is where my success comes in. Exactly.
I used to, and it's not my phrase, I picked it up somewhere along the way, but in all of the coaching groups and, high-end masterminds, the best conversations and the best knowledge is dropped during the breaks, happy hours.
Yeah, that's it.
In between events.
And it's
not necessarily listening to person speaking from the front of the room.
Yeah.
From the stage. The best conversations, the best knowledge.
That's it.
Is in
that's why we're here.
Seeing the whites of each other's eyes.
That's it. That's why we're here. That's why I was on your podcast. That's why you're on mine. And that's why every time I see you, there's this good connection that we have because there's good chemistry, but that's human. I didn't do that through.
That's another thing too, is find like-minded people.
That's it.
And for a newbie, find like-minded people, find people who feel and think like you. Don't try to mold yourself into something you're not.
Oh, you know what's so funny? I agree with you. I'm not interrupting, but
No, you're fine.
I remember trying to work with all these older, like when I was a younger LO, I don't know why, I just connected with older people and I would try to do business with them and it was so hard. Mm-hmm. And then somebody was like, why don't you just try to hang out with people just like you, like your age? I was like, what a weird thing to say to me. But yes, why didn't I try that? And then when I did, my business exploded because I was hanging out with the people that I wanted to hang out with. It was like I don't golf, but I'm hanging out at all these golf courses that it was like a fish out of water, and they knew that. Mm-hmm. It was like almost like I was just thirsty to get business.
Fakery, well, that's actually what is a huge turnoff to so many people with socials is because people put up this persona of how great everything is.
Yeah.
And in reality, they're the most miserable human being behind the scenes or in real life. Same with real fakery, in real life.
Yeah.
Fish out of water golf course, I would be too. Like, I could not tell you the first things about frickin' golf,
No.
I don't care about it.
Well, like here's the other one.
But people can tell. When you talk to them, they know when you're being genuine or when you're being fake.
Without a doubt. I think most people should have a good barometer of bullshit, right? And know whether or not it is. But the other piece is you do podcasting, you do content, and then there's people that think that that's what you do most of the time.
Oh, that's
such a small. So what does the rest of the day look like for you?
You're lot putting of time out on fires. Your phone and the computer.
How much between? Because you had to travel pretty far to be here. Thank you, by the way, for taking time out of your day.
I enjoyed the travel.
But you probably are putting out fires. You have deals that are people don't realize.
Nope.
No matter how good you are as an LO, we still have an underwriter we still got to talk to.
There is still about, 25 other parties that can blow the deal out of the water, no matter how good you are.
It's a manufacturing process.
Yeah, or your underwriter, it can be a whole slew of other factors that can work against you.
Without a doubt. So I just want to tell you a couple of things because we just jumped into this without really giving real introductions or anything like that. But Ella, you have been a really big inspiration for me in the mastermind and a really good friend of mine. And it's really amazing to see your growth, and you know, for you to take time out of your busy schedule to travel,
Thank you, Chris.
45 minutes to get here is amazing to me. You know, I want to see your career and what you're doing continue to grow, and I know that it is. You position yourself perfectly to do that. So if you are looking for her, what's your tagline again or your Instagram handle again?
Ella Mortgage Lender.
Ella Mortgage Lender. And find her on Instagram. Ask Ella is a podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. I subscribe to it. And you know, look, if you like this podcast or even Ask Ella, take a snapshot of it, tag us in it, and we'll make sure that we mention you on the podcast. But thank you guys for following us today. And Ella, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a deep dive into my life that I didn't necessarily expect.
Did you not expect that to happen today?
I appreciate that.
It was fascinating to me. We said we're going to do 30 minutes. We're at an hour, but like
I
so
don't share
fascinated
my
by
story
you.
that much because to me it's no big deal. It's my life. So
no, I think it's a really big deal.
I don't know. It's just it's my life. But thank you for asking the tough questions and making me think. And thank you for suggesting we do this because, like you said, you know, finding a kindred spirit in this crazy industry means a lot. I mean, even though we work for two different companies.
Oh yeah, we collaborate.
Like we talked about it on my podcast.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it's not all competition. A lot of us are really good friends, even though we're with different companies.
And I want to see you win. You know, I see what you're doing, and I'm like so proud of you. We're in we do our own mastermind together because I want to see you grow. I want to see you, you know,
and what you do is amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'll tell you this, you know, when I look at these podcasts, you know, you and I we're fortunate. Like imagine your great grandparents doing podcast and you can dig it up one day and find it, right? I hope that our kids can find this podcast and hear a side of you that they didn't, you know otherwise. And we will forever implant that into the world because we had the ability to take something like YouTube and post it on there, and they can now learn what it was like to be a 16-year-old, you know, coming to America. And I think it's amazing that you were able to tell that story. So thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this, you know, give us a subscribe and, you know, 5 stars, and we appreciate you. Thank you for hearing.